Good afternoon, everybody. We're back for our March installment of the Flash Q&A with founder and co-creator Chris Kitze. Today we're going to go over a couple of brief updates with regards to the Mammoth Exchange. We're going to talk a little bit about BitLounge and the new partnership there. We can hopefully get those guys on the line. I've had a couple of questions regarding Cryptopia. Chris is going to give a very brief update on some of the marketing push we're working on, some partnerships. We'll do our usual Flash web address wallet update, and just something brief on FTI. So just for everybody, today's the 26th of March 2018, and we're nearing the end of Q1, so a lot of patient Flash investors and holders and spenders out there. So Chris, how you doing today?
Doing great. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you on board as usual. We're going to get this call started off. I think your knowledge in the crypto world and just your involvement in what you've been doing over the last few years, I always love hearing about your take on cryptocurrency as a whole. And I'm not talking just Bitcoin, because everybody seems to think of Bitcoin when they hear cryptocurrency. But obviously in the first quarter of 2018, we've seen somewhat of a pullback to the December highs, and the overall market has sort of pulled back a little in general. So are you able to give a bit of insight on what you think is some of the main contributing factors there, and for any general crypto investors and newbies, is there any sort of moving forward statement you can give, and maybe just a hot tip or two in regards to some coins which you think are about to pop, aside from our very own Flash?
Sure. Well, starting with the market, I mean, it's, obviously everyone looks at their portfolio every day and it's terrible. It's all red. It's horrible. The prices are down. But just remember this, compared to 2 months ago, all the coins that you hold, whatever coin they are now 2 months further along. They've got 2 more months of hard work that's been going on. And, and as far as the actual coin itself goes, it's probably 2 months better. So the price is just a way to look at, how it's doing and what people think about it in general. But prices are, what I think people are now realizing is that a lot of pricing is now controlled. And it never used to be this way. There have been crashes. I mean, Bitcoin went down 80, 90% multiple times. When MTGOX, the big exchange in Japan, got hacked, I mean, that was where most people were doing their trading. And that was a place where, a lot of Bitcoins were stored on that exchange and they got lost. And when that thing died, when that thing went under, a lot of people lost a lot of coins and there was a huge crash. And we haven't had anything that's, a negative of that magnitude. Part of it is because everything is more global now. But as far as the negatives that have been weighing on the market, the SEC, which basically said we're going to enforce the law, and we think that utility tokens are security coins, which I think a lot of people disagree with, but that's what the SEC says. And a number of other things have been weighing on these things. For example, some of the exchanges went back and forth in South Korea. People in South Korea said, well, we're going to regulate it. And then they said, we're not going to regulate it as much. We're going to put this out of business. Then they're not going to put it out of business. So I think finally what's happened is people are just kind of tuning all that stuff out. But I think the big factor right now in the markets is the futures. And these are Bitcoin futures. They are based on price set by a number of exchanges, but the prices it's all settled in cash. It's not settled in Bitcoins. So in other words, you're now allowing fiat money, which can be printed in unlimited quantities, to determine the price of Bitcoin. And because every other coin is tied to Bitcoin, it also determines the price of every other coin. So that's been the strategy that they've used to do this. Now, why is this important? Why do they want to see the price down? Because I believe right now there are a lot of people who want to get into the crypto coin market. A lot. These are all family offices. There's probably $500 billion of family office money. There's probably another 1 to 2 trillion of sovereign money. that wants to come in, and they don't want to pay $20,000. They'd rather pay $6,000, $8,000, $9,000 for their bitcoins, and that is pretty much what's happening. So there's a lot of demand that's coming in, but there's also a lot of people who are original Bitcoin holders who are looking at the barbed wire that's coming to the prairie and saying, we don't like it, we're going to hit the sell button. And these are people who are big holders. So these are people who hold 10, 20, 50, 100,000 coins. And what ends up happening is these people, they want to get out. And so we're seeing probably 2 to 3 million coins for sale right now on OTC markets. And there's probably more than that, but these are just ones we know about. And then you do have a lot of buying. So I think what's going to happen is this will probably clear through, I would say, in the next month or two, maybe a little bit longer. Once that happens, prices will be able to go up because then there won't be as much supply, and people will still want to buy. So that's kind of my take on what's going on with the markets right now in general. Flash and certain coins, other coins, have their own life, of course, and to some extent they're driven by the overall market. But I think in a lot of cases they're going to be driven by whatever the coin is doing, what kind of new features, what kind of new developments have happened for the coin. And I think that, in the case of Flash, we'll get into some of these developments here in a minute. A lot of exciting stuff on the horizon.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, from a contributor's perspective, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, which a lot of the team are working on. And just quickly before we move on from this topic, are there any hot investment tips? And I mean, I know you're not an advisor, but is there any particular cryptos that you are following outside of the Flash world? Like, I know there's Monero you're always bullish on, well, not bullish on, or pretty keen on, and you've got, I think you mentioned Alf recently.
Yeah, well, I'll to be truthful, I just sold about a third of my Monero last week, and I mean it had quite a run. And I think just as an investor, you just have to maintain your discipline. Um, the issue for the private coins, and I think this is a big trend you're going to see, is exchanges are becoming centralized. That's just a fact of life. Now, there will be decentralized exchanges, which will not require the KYC and all the other things, the reporting and everything else. They'll just be trading between individual people. But anything that's on a regular exchange is going to fall under the full weight of regulation. And I think it's possible that some of these private coins are going to have a hard time on exchanges. And the reason is because, when you send money from bank to another bank, they know where the money came from. It came from another bank. And that other bank has KYC, and they have anti-money laundering policies and whatnot. Banks are very comfortable with other banks. When you send a Bitcoin to somebody and then get fiat money back out of a bank for it, the banks are scared to death about money laundering because they can't know exactly who the person was who had the Bitcoins. Now, they can run it through a scanner and say, oh, this coin was used on Silk Road, it was used for ransomware or whatever. And then they can say, we don't take those kind of coins. But the problem is there's a lot of things that they just don't do with these coins. They can't tell you who owned the coin. So that's one of the big problems with the exchanges. And I think that, here in the near future, I think, some of these decentralized exchanges, and by the way, Flash, we've been talking to a lot of these people. We want to support all the decentralized exchanges. We're actually on Crypto Bridge right now, but I think it's safe to say you'll see us doing a lot with these decentralized exchanges. The problem we have is most of them are ERC20 coins. Flash is not an ERC20 coin. It's a Bitcoin family coin. And so for that reason, it's the technology is a little bit different. But that's the kind of the overview of what's going on in that realm.
Interesting. It's Yeah, I remember you talked about Monero and a few other privacy coins back July last year, and I hopped on at that point because I took your word pretty seriously, and you seem to be well involved in the community. So yeah, it's good to hear that that sort of their perspective on the privacy. And at the end of the day, it was inevitable, I think. And you're right, centralization of exchanges is going to happen, and there is going to be involvement from those authorities. So. Great. Well, look, that's a good sort of wrap up on that general crypto Bitcoin pocket of news. So we'll move forward here and obviously get into the meat and potatoes of the reason we do these calls, and that is to talk a little bit more about where we're at with Flash. Now, obviously, there's all sorts of things happening right now, and the two previous monthly update calls have been very informative. We're sort of pretty much nearing the end of Q1, and I know Deepak and Drifters and a bunch of the guys that are doing a bunch of work right now, and we're pretty close to some pretty exciting things. So I can imagine you're pretty short on information because you've already given a lot of it out to the public. But the word on everybody's tongue right now is Mammoth. Just a uh, quick spiel on where we're at, how far we're out from seeing this going live, and one particular question: is there a possibility to sort of map out the relationship timeline? That was from I think one of the users on Discord. I can't remember the name exact, but start off with that. Can you just sort of lay out that timeline?
Well, timelines are hard when you're dealing with regulated businesses. You have to get a lot of things done. I mean, the issue right now in Liechtenstein is, and I'll be going back there in a couple of weeks to get some more things finished up. I mean, I've spent so far in the last couple months, I've probably spent, well over a month there. So, so what we're looking for is, I would say the fiat to the crypto trading. We're cleared to do that right now, and we're just waiting for the software to get delivered. And I'm hoping for that in the next week or two that we can start looking at it. And then it's probably another 2 to 4 weeks. We'll have to do some more testing. We have to integrate the KYC, and then we'll be able to get going. Then that's just for the crypto to crypto. The fiat to crypto, it's possible that we could do a vending machine type of an approach, and that would be primarily for people in Europe using IBAN, and then the other people in the rest of the world, we'd have to have a way for people to send in wires, and basically it would be like an OTC trade for people. That's how it would be done. And that's possible too. We're going to start doing OTC trading for Bitcoins and cash there as soon as next week. So OTC trading for Flash, that's definitely on my radar. Most of the initial demand is for Bitcoin and fiat from that point of view. So the other part is that once we have that running, it's possible also to do what I call a vending machine, which is to put a way that people can pay. Using a credit card is problematic because you have to get approval from the card association and from the merchant banks, the acquiring banks. And it turns out that Bank Frick, which is our bank partner over there, they are deeply involved in this, and they actually have some customers who are starting to do this. The issues are mostly around chargebacks and fraud. And so, you can say, well, I don't care, I'll pay the chargebacks and everything else. But the problem is the card association thinks that if you're over 1%, you are a bad person and you get kicked out. So you have to, really run a clean ship with that. And we're kind of waiting to see how some things turn out for other people. But that's on our deck right now. And if that can happen in Liechtenstein, I would say it's probably anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks away. But the other bit of news is that there's another exchange in Canada. I can't say who it is, but it looks very promising that as soon as next week, we may be up on that, and they are offering fiat to crypto purchases, and that's for people in Canada. I don't know if it includes the U.S. might include the U.S., but but that could be, and from Canada you can actually serve the rest of the world as well. So that could be that could actually beat Mammoth out the door in terms of getting something done for Flash, and that would be a very very positive development for Flash because they are interested in using Flash as a coin pair for a lot of other coins. Now I can't mention the name of the exchange; we don't have everything finished yet, but it that could be very very positive for Flash.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I mean, for people in Canada, do the math. There's only so many Canadian exchanges out there, right? So that's I'm excited. I'm living in Canada despite the accent, and that's huge. Yeah, that's a very positive move forward.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's about 30 million people in Canada, and so it's about 10% the size of the U.S. But I think Canada. The nice thing about Canada is you can actually serve a lot of the world from Canada. Generally, most people in money service businesses avoid the U.S. just because of all the regulations and rules. But they can certainly serve just about anywhere else in the world, and and anybody, almost any country, can get a bank account in Canada with two forms of ID. Hard to believe, but I was told that a couple of years ago. So that I'm very positive about. We've got an exchange in India. While I'm on the topic of exchanges, I might as well just go through it. We just completed a deal. It hasn't been publicly announced yet, but we just sent some $8,000 worth of bitcoins from our community fund went to pay for an exchange that's based here in the U.S. There's another exchange in India that we're waiting for. They were supposed to give us an address to deposit, and we were kind of going back and forth with them. A lot of exchanges want to charge lots of money, and we're a community coin, so everything that's paid for is paid for by the community. So it's not like we have one giant whale who just pays for everything. That doesn't happen with Flash. We pass the hat on a lot of things, and the community comes out and says, "Yeah, we'll support it." But I think this exchange in Canada, if that works the way I think it does, it will be a stepping stone. And there's um, a large fund is interested in investing as well in buying some Flash OTC. They will, assuming that happens, and assuming that this exchange happens, they have told us that it's a very real possibility that we can get onto one of the larger Chinese exchanges. Now, that's one of those from my lips to God's ear, right? But the fact is that, when you have people talking about it, why is it that Flash is now being considered for these kind of things? Well, it's simple. We are not a security token. So we don't have all this baggage of we did an ICO. Are we a security? Are we not a security? We were extremely careful when we started the coin. So we don't have that kind of baggage that we could be deemed to be a security. We're purely a community coin. So what does that mean? All the people right now, because the market's pretty much flat, the ICO market is pretty much flat because of all of these issues with the security tokens. What are people looking for now? They're looking for undervalued coins that are community coins that have certain features that are very fast, that have low transaction processing fees, and that have a large user base. Well, guess what? Flash, flash, and flash. That's where we are. So that's the good news, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities that we're going to be able to jump on in the next 3 to 6 months. And assuming we can do that, I think I'm not going to say any price because everyone says, "What's the price going to be?" I don't make forecasts for price, but people are telling me, numbers that I'm thinking, wow. But if you think about what it is we've actually got here with Flash, it's certainly worth a lot more than where we are now, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Well, enough said there. I think that's it speaks for itself. Flash, 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 and I think the more people move away from the SEC's all the security tokens and whatnot, and they see the value in the undervalued coins like Flash, then we see movement. But just going back to Mammoth there, I just want to sort of wrap up a couple of questions there. What coins other than Flash is Mammoth planning to support?
Well, the initial coins are all the Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash. Basically top 10 coins. Monero, that's one of the coins we're going to support. ERC20 tokens. So once you support ERC20, you can support the whole family. Now, we do have to go through and be careful. Liechtenstein's a little bit different in terms of what they consider to be utility versus security. They are, the regulator there is not as tough on people for calling everything a security like the SEC is. So I'm actually very hopeful that we're going to be able to add a lot of coins. I mean, I talked to people like Metal. I know Marshall Hain. I talked to one of his people. I was at a show in Puerto Rico, and I like what Metal's doing. And they are no longer in the U.S., but they're on Chinese exchanges, and I think that's an interesting coin. I like that coin. I like what those guys are doing, and that might be one that we would look at for Mammoth. So the issue is really, it's just a question of how much time and money it costs to review the compliance and then review the tech. Because a lot of coins have individualized, specialized blockchains, and you have to do special work to support their wallet.
Did Metal just get recently delisted off Bittrex? Is that what I was reading?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did a bit of a purge, a bit of a cleanup.
Yep.
Is that because they're no longer based out of the US and Bittrex is?
No, I don't know the reason for that. I mean, maybe the trading volume went down too low, but they actually, they Metal got listed on Cryptopia, and then I think on Binance or Huobi, one of those. And so I think most of the trading is actually taking place over in China or in Singapore, Hong Kong now.
Gotcha. Fair enough. That makes sense.
Yep. I don't know. I know Bill at Bittrex, and I don't know his reason for that, but Bill's a good person, and there's probably some reason. Maybe the SEC might have said, there were U.S. people involved and they got tokens. But I thought the metal offering I thought was very clean. It was actually done very well. They sold equity, and then what they did was they just gave people tokens. They said, here, go try these things, go play with them. And then the tokens turned out to have value. They put them on an exchange. It's like, wow, these things were worth a lot. And and then it went from there.
Yeah, I've sort of been following Metal not closely, but like in the background of all the rest that's going on in the crypto world, and people seem to be very, very bullish and very high on it. So, good little insight there.